Hey, in this case study, I'm going to walk you through how we helped a 7-figure real estate portfolio company in Wisconsin get clear on exactly which of their units were profitable, how we're able to help them determine which ones are not profitable, what to do, and how we're going to help them be able to keep scaling up to buy more properties and stay more profitable. Let's get into it. Hey, in this video, we're going to walk through a real estate portfolio company that came to us based out of Wisconsin, and the challenges they were facing, how we were able to help them in terms of seeing where they were potentially losing profitability, and the changes we made that have got them back feeling more profitable and how they're going to scale up. So I want to dive into it. This company came to us. Obviously, they're doing real estate investments, both rentals and house flips, based out of Wisconsin. Their portfolio includes apartment buildings, small rentals, active house flipping, and they even have a coffee shop, which we didn't mention in here. And what's interesting is that they have hundreds and hundreds of units. Or sorry, they have almost 100 units. Their goal is to get to hundreds and hundreds of units. And previously, they'd been up to around a 7-figure rate in terms of income from this real estate portfolio, which is obviously they've built up a solid bulk of units. And so we're going to dive into this. So a couple things here. For systems, if you're in the real estate portfolio space, they've been using Buildium for rent collection and obviously QuickBooks for bookkeeping, but the two weren't aligned, and we're going to get into kind of how that plays out. So the challenges they were facing. So one was vacancy blind spots. So when they came to us, their utility bills were showing up even when units weren't rented. So things weren't being turned off, just sort of a lack of oversight on the expenses side, which sometimes feels like, if you watch this, you might think, oh, that's an easy one. Honestly, if you don't have someone overlooking this, or you don't know how to, if you don't have the systems in place to monitor and check this, it's amazing what can happen with expenses. And we were guilty of this early in our business of just subscription costs, like going up, or subscriptions that we're no longer using that we're still paying for. So it's always helpful to have a third party look in and say, hey, where are we potentially losing opportunity here, or just expense waste? And then two is there's no consistent way to measure the true cost of vacancy. So they hadn't really looked into what was the actual cost of lost rent, of utilities, and then turnover costs, right? So it's sort of like, what's interesting with real estate is sort of when you have an employee, for example, there's a turnover cost to that employee, letting them go, training a new, finding and hiring a new person, training that new person, the period of time it's going to take them to get up to speed of the previous person, like all of that is a turnover cost. And so, we were able to, we'll get into this, but that was one of the challenges that they were facing. Number two is messy bookkeeping. So the expenses for their flips were scattered across different categories. So this is a big deal in terms of really tracking, hey, how much did each flip cost? Whereas we were kind of taking all the expenses and attributing them to multiple various flips. And it's like, well, which flip costs what? So really not being able to see that was costly in the sense of not knowing exactly how profitable an individual flip might be. And then two, repairs, maintenance, and property costs not clearly separated between operating versus property level. So what's the operating cost of the total company versus per property? So getting into that specifically. The third challenge they were facing is there's no margin visibility per property. So you couldn't tell which buildings or flips were actually the most profitable, and our gross margins weren't calculated consistently, meaning that our net operating income wasn't clear. So these were the challenges that they were facing. And so when we started working together, here's what we implemented. One was we wanted to get really clear on our gross margin and net operating income clarity. So we built a property by property gross margins spreadsheet. So literally listed out all the properties, and we went line by line of what does each unit do in terms of profitability. So number two is we helped them align Buildium, so their tracking software, with rent revenue with QuickBooks so to their P&L and QuickBooks by class. And then we introduce operating expense ratio versus baseline expenses to mimic real estate NOI standards. So really helping them be able to see, hey, what do we have in terms of expenses to just operate the business, and then what do we have in terms of baseline expenses that are per property, right? So hey, per property, what are our baseline expenses per property versus overall, what's our operating expenses to just run this company total? So those we were able to get them insight into that. Two was vacancy cost tracking, so added vacancy utilities plus turnover expenses into the cost of vacancy. So it's not just the rent, like potential rent that we're losing, it's also potentially utilities as well as the turnover expenses of having to find someone to find a new renter, right? Putting it up on Zillow if you're paying for premium spots, those kind of things add up into the total cost of a vacancy. And then we reinforce leasing accountability. Every day vacant has a real dollar impact. So making sure that we're focused on how do we fill that vacancy and by not doing that, what is the actual cost of not filling that? So then the next thing we did was bookkeeping fees. So we clarified what should go under COGS, whether it's commissions, title fees, flips versus operating costs, right? Taxes, insurance, property management. So we're really separating that out to see what is the cost of goods sold to get this unit filled versus what are just overall operating costs. And then we created categories for repairs and maintenance that apply across multiple properties. So that was able to give us, if we're doing repairs and buying things, being able to see like, hey, which different properties are we're able to use these resources for multiple properties. And then systems upgrades. So we expanded their gross margin tracker to handle all 20 plus income streams, so they can see the margins on every single income stream that they've got coming in this case, the different units and different properties. And we shifted from unit level noise to building level profitability analysis. So meaning we're able to actually see, rather than just, we're able to look at the unit level, but then also at the building itself, how profitable is the whole building. So after we did this, just kind of looking at this on a roughly doing 7 figures of rental and flip activity annually, being able to really hone in on those margins and say, hey, actually we now know what our true margins are, not a slightly bit higher than we thought. If we're able to change that by 2%, we're looking at 20 grand in just pure profit per year of being able to improve that margin, which is usually going to go to improving pricing, right, or changing pricing to be able to do that. And then a 5% improvement, if we make the changes for pricing to 5%, we're looking at $50,000, again, profit to the bottom line, without even adding any properties. So that's how we're looking at it without even adding properties. How can we be more profitable? And then a clear vacancy cost tracking can save $5,000 to $100,000 per unit per month and hidden losses during turnover. So for us, it's a huge one, right? If you think about they want to add hundreds of units, let's just say 100, right? If we can look at, hey, clear vacancy cost tracking can save us maybe even minimum $500 per unit, 100 units. You can do the math. It's a lot of money going to be saved over the course of their time building up this portfolio. And then the bookkeeping clarity reduces wasted time for the bookkeeper and accountant and helps them allow them to make faster reinvestment decisions. So that one, not as clear in terms of objective measure, but super important in terms of speed of being able to make decisions, especially in something like real estate where deals might only be active for a certain period of time. They can make those decisions because they have the informed data. So what are we doing with them next as we're continuing to work with them? We're standardizing our NOI reports per property. We're going to track vacancy costs monthly to hold leasing accountable. We're going to use gross margin insights to prioritize which properties to buy, hold, or sell. So this is really interesting. We actually mentioned about maybe even selling some properties because they're not as profitable as other types of properties that they've been investing in. And so even though the idea is like build your portfolio and we want more and more units, we want more profitable units, not just more total units in general. And then transition to a bookkeeping partner who can manage property-specific COGS consistently. So this is the plan for them. This is the journey that we've helped again over, this client was in one of our academy programs. We were able to really sit down and help them transform all of this, build out their financial dashboard so they can see all of this in real time and go through these things over, over a short period of time, train them up to make better decisions. So this is a case study of a real estate portfolio company in Wisconsin. Hope you found it useful. If you got any questions, find us over on our website, ceofinanceacademy.com, and let us know if you need some help. We'll see you soon.